Hello and welcome to the instructional video for the Gaumard multi-purpose advanced IV arm. So this is the arm that we have here. I'm just going to go over how to set it up and some of the uses for the arm itself. So this arm does support the use of a peripheral IV insertion on the dorsum of the hand or the antecubital area, so you can flip the arm over depending on which site you're going to use. It also has a spot to practice intramuscular injections and a simulated deltoid on the upper shoulder. So there's a pad that can be inserted there if you're choosing to practice intramuscular injections. You can also do blood withdrawal from this arm and infusions. So to set up the arm itself, first of all, you're going to want to find a nice flat surface, either on a table, you can use a patient bed, and it comes with this little stand. So the stand here, so you set up to stand on something nice and flat, and then this part flips up, which will hold the bag of simulated blood. The arm itself, you can position on there. It does come with some straps that you can use to strap the arm in place if you'd like, and there are holders on it. I haven't personally found that I need them at all, but those do exist if you so desire to keep this arm from moving. The arm itself has a couple tubes coming out of the back that'll be important for priming that I'll show you now. So the first tube here actually hooks up to the blood bag, the simulated blood bag, and so it's got a little silver end on it. So this one right here will hook up to this bag that it comes with and the bottom part. So the top part here should come with a little rubber stopper in it, like so. So the first thing you want to do is hook the arm up to this bag. It is a little tricky. You do have to push. It does go together. You just have to kind of wiggle it in. And when you push it in, make sure you've pushed it in all the way to the hub there, like so. And then you can hang this bag up on that stand. I highly recommend having towels or paper towel available for this, because if the blood spills, it can make a bit of a mess. You're also going to want to have a little cylinder here, a little spout to help the blood go in. So when we're first priming the bag to fill up with blood, there's another tube at the back here, and it's got a clamp on it. So this is going to help to get all the air out of the lines when we're priming. So you're going to want to have a container of any sort. I have a little kidney basin here, but any kind of container where you can put the end of this in and just let it sit like that while you fill up the blood bag so that the blood doesn't get all over the place. But when you're first starting and filling up the bag, just keep it clamped. So keep this clamp activated for the moment, and let's just fill up the bag with blood. So here we go. Just going to add blood to the bag. You can reuse this blood every time, so I'll show you in the end when we're cleaning how to do that, but you still don't need to overfill the bag. I usually fill the bag up about halfway. It works really well. And sometimes there can be little airlocks in the bag, so I recommend going nice and slow when you first start, otherwise it can bounce back at you. So I'm just going to fill that up now. There should be mock blood provided, but you can also use water. It doesn't have to be blood. I've already got an airlock in here and it's spilling. Good demonstration. Once it starts to fill up and flow, it tends to do a bit better. Or you can put your pinky finger in and kind of push on the bag a little bit and open it up and create some space, some air in there. I'll just keep going nice and slow, and hopefully this doesn't leak anymore. Bag tends to stick together. You can push a little bit of air in to start too, if that helps. Pull the bag apart a little bit as you fill it. It does come with this pressure attachment here, which is used for a variety of things. But if you're filling it and you're finding that the bag is sticking together, just attach this where that rubber stopper went. Put a little bit of air in the bag. It'll just help expand the plastic from sticking together, and then it won't make such a mess. So there's one tip or trick to help you. See if that makes a difference here. There we go. All of this blood can be reused at the end as well. All right. So now that this is full, we want to get all the air out of the system. So once you fill up the bag here, put the stopper in like that. And now we're going to open up the clamp on this little exit valve down here and just let the line prime through. So that's what I'm going to do now. Sometimes if there are little bits of air built up, it won't flow very easily. So this is when another tip or trick, if you opened up that clamp and it's not immediately flowing, hook up this pressure attachment and put a little bit of air in the bag, and that tends to push through the fluid a little bit here and help to prime it. So you can even put a little bit of pressure on the bag itself. Once it gets started, it's usually pretty good, but sometimes it just needs a little bit of help. I can hear the air moving there. That's perfect. And essentially, I'm just going to watch it until I see red coming out of this tubing here, which I got still air coming with a little bit of the red. So I'm just going to give it a couple seconds until I just see red fluid coming out. And this will get all the air out of those simulated veins. All right, so I've got red fluid coming out here now. I don't see any further air bubbles. So now I'm going to re-engage this clamp here. That's perfect. And we're just going to save all the excess blood that came out there, because in the end, when we clean up the trainer too, this will help us to reuse the blood. Okay, so now this trainer is actually all primed with blood inside of the arm veins. This can be left attached up here, this pressure one, or you can put that black rubber stopper back in it as well. The only thing that this will do is if you want to simulate really nice full veins or the application of a tourniquet, this will do that. So the more you pump this up, the plumper the veins will get. And then if you remove all the air from here, the veins will be a bit flatter. So it depends what kind of challenge you want for IV insertion. So you can pump it up quite nicely. Just watch that there's no air bubbles forming in there. You've got enough fluid in there. So I've got quite a bit of air in here. So this will simulate a nice full vein with tourniquet application. So for this trainer, as with all of our other trainers, you can't have any food, any drink, or any ink near it. It will damage the trainer. The other one is that we have to use 22 IVs, so we can't use IVs any larger or will damage the trainer, and IVs that are any smaller tend not to work as well. I've tested this out. I find that you can increase the fidelity a little bit by using a little bit of this provided simulator lubricant. So you can spray it over top of the dorsum of the hand or in the antecubital area. Just give it a rub and wipe all the excess off. It doesn't need to be a ton on there, but it will help with the mock skin for the IV to go into the trainer. The other part about this trainer that I find a little challenging is you do get flashback with it, but you definitely have to pull the needle back a little bit. So if you're telling your learners and they're using this, if they feel like they're in the vein, tell them to just pull the needle back a little bit as they're advancing the plastic catheter. And that's when I find the best flashback comes. So that's how to use this for IV insertion. If you are wanting to do blood withdrawal, it's actually ready to go right now. Just make sure you keep this clamp closed on this one here. On that valve line, and then this filled with as much blood as you need. And then when they insert their line into here, they can do the blood withdrawal and practice that. You just may need to top this bag up with extra mock blood. If you would like to do an IV infusion, you can. So once they get the IV access device in there, then they can hook up an infusion and actually run an infusion. The only thing is if you're going to do that, you have to make sure you open up this clamp on this other line here. Otherwise, it's too much pressure for these simulated veins. So just make sure you open up this clamp and have this tube run into something that it can drain while it runs the IV infusion. For cleanup afterwards, this one does have a few details to it. So once you're finished with your session and you're ready to clean up, the first thing we want to do is get rid of all the mock blood out of the system. And it's usually pretty straightforward. It's just opening up this into whatever container that you have and letting as much of it drain as possible, because all that mock blood can be put back into the jug and saved for later. So what I first do is just open this up and let that blood drain out. It'll go a lot quicker if you pump it up filled with air. Just helps it to move faster, and you're not going to get all the blood out, but I try to get as much as possible just to waste not whatnot. You can even lift this up a little higher if you want. It'll help it to drain quite fast, and I see lots of blood coming out here, draining out of the system. Just going to push on it with my hands and get it out there. And as it gets near the end, you're going to find that it's not draining as easily because it kind of pools in the corners. We'll just get as much as possible. All right, so now I'm just kind of getting, I don't know if you can see there, bits of air starting to come now because I'm kind of near the end. I'll just switch this around and try and get as much as possible. All right, so we've got most of the mock blood out there. I'm going to just engage this clamp for a moment and remove this kidney basin of mock blood because I'm going to put it back into the container later. So I'm just going to set this aside. I usually have 2 containers when I do this. So I have another container here, an empty container. You have whatever you need ready to go. And then if you prepare a jug, so we need to clean out the venous system in here. And so you do that with water and the isopropyl 70% alcohol. So Island Health's containers look like this. You want to do a 70-30 mix. So it's 70% water and 30% of the alcohol, which I've pre-prepared here. And then what you want to do is just fill this up just like you had originally with the mock blood. So make sure your clamp is closed when you do this. Grab your, handy dandy little funnel there again, and just pour in a whole bunch of this cleaning solution. We want to run it through until it basically gets all of that mock blood out of the system. I'll usually fill this up at least, a quarter of the way, maybe half the bag there. Okay, I'm going to attach the pressure attachment again too, because this just helps it to go quicker. And then I'm going to make sure that I put the end of this tube that has the valve in it into a container and open it up. Same as last time, you'll see the fluid start to flow. You can even pump up the bag and just make it go quicker. And this will push that alcohol water mix through the bag and clear out any of the mock blood that's in there. Sometimes you just need to make sure that it's below the level of the arm. Give it a little push. If there's air bubbles that form, sometimes just a little push is needed, but usually doesn't take much, and then it'll start to free flow. And then you can just keep adding water to the bag and just keep doing this essentially until you see the liquid coming out of the arm clear is what we want. Then we know it's cleaned all the mock blood out of the system. Mine's starting to go a little pink, clear. All right, I've got clear fluid now coming out of that tubing on the end, which is perfect. So you're going to push through all of this fluid into the container. I'm just going to speed this up with a bit more air. Tilt it with my hands. And then once you get all the fluid out of the bag of your water alcohol mix, essentially the last thing that you want to do is just keep pushing the bag filled with air. The air will actually flow into the system, into the mock veins and clean them out. And it helps them to dry out a little bit too. It makes it easier to prime it for the next time that you use it. So almost finished with all that fluid there. I don't know if you can start to hear it, but I have air bubbles now coming through. So the fluid is done. All right, so now most of the fluid is out of the bag. I'm just going to keep pumping this up with air. The bag will get really large, and then you'll start to hear air coming out of the other. Just keep that valve open and just keep pumping it until you don't see any more fluid coming out. You hear that? So lots of air pushing through there. You just keep pumping, lots of air. Okay, so I don't see any more liquid bubbles coming out of there, so I'm just going to close that clamp there. And that's pretty much that. So I'll take this bag off, I'll disconnect everything, take some paper towel, make sure that the bag is nice and dry, make sure I mopped up any extra fluid that are on there. And then afterwards, I would just give this arm a bit of a wipe down just with a damp towel to make sure any excess mock blood has been removed from the trainer and doesn't damage the skin, and put everything away. And that's how you set up and clean up the Gaumard trainer. All of our trainers do come with test trainer care and maintenance guides, which highlight everything I've just mentioned on paper, as well as observation tools to guide through the steps of the skills that we support with this trainer. If you have any questions, please reach out to cecil@bho.ca. Thank you.